Hello. So for today's class, what we'll be talking about is we'll be continuing the nutrition series, and we'll be talking about some fad diets and just some diets that you see. So I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about it. Obviously, this is my opinion. Everyone has, things that work for them and things that don't. So it's just my opinion. So if you have different opinions, that's okay. So as you know, in our world, we have many different types of fad diets. So thinking about that, they advertise them in magazines, on the television, online. Now we have influencers advertising these things. So just thinking about, each one is promising that you're going to, lose weight in a short amount of time, which most of the time is not sustainable. So you really want to find a healthy diet that you can sustain your weight with, that works for you. But most of the time when you see a fad diet, there are some kind of signs that can help you recognize them. So most of the time they're going to promise really quick weight loss. They're going to, limit food selections and kind of dictate rituals. So they might limit, you can't eat bread, things like that. And they're using testimonials from famous people or, just people who, may have a nice body or something like that. They're going to use those testimonials to sell their product. They also will bill themselves as a cure-all. They often recommend very expensive supplements, and they're not making an attempt to actually change your eating habits permanently. It's kind of a quick fix. A lot of times they use scientific jargon and terms to kind of make it seem like they know what they're talking about, and then they're generally critical and skeptical of the scientific comments. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the types. So you've probably heard Atkins, South Beach, things like that. I'm going to talk a little bit about those today, which I'll go more into later. But so one type of fad diet is low carbohydrates. So that's kind of one of the more common types of fad diets. And just thinking about that, the brain requires glucose for normal functioning, and glucose is made from tissue proteins. So if you're not eating carbohydrates, it will lead to protein loss, which is going to lead to tissue loss of your muscles. So most of the time when you are doing a low carbohydrate diet, you're going to lose weight rapidly due to the loss of carbohydrates and fluids. So it works in the short run because of limited food intake. And you're just, reducing your eating to a limited selection. On a normal diet, fluids are restored and the weight is, regained. So when you're going back to the normal diet, your fluids are coming back up, which means you're just going to gain the weight right back. So the plan typically lacks fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and they're not intended for long-term use. So you're not actually changing your habits. You're just doing a quick fix, which isn't going to be super beneficial for you in the long run. It's going to include, excessive intake of animal fats, and individuals often experience reduced exercise because you're limiting your carbohydrate intake. You're not going to perform as well in your exercise. Your body needs carbs to help you exercise. It can also result in, metabolic dehydration due to the use of the body's own storage of carbohydrates and protein, which is going to result in initial weight loss. But it's extremely stressful to your body and your brain. It's going to kind of force your brain to use other, sources of energy, which are not the types of source that the brain prefers. fibers. Another thing is it can lead to, serious health problems such as kidney stress, liver disorders, and gout. It can also, increase the chances of heart disease, diabetes, stroke, certain types of cancer. So just being careful and aware of that is something I would recommend. So we will talk a little bit more about the Atkins diets, but just a little bit about that. The Atkins typical diet contains up to 50% fat and provides significantly fewer grains, vegetables, and fruit than recommended by the U.S. dietary guidelines. Very low carbohydrates diet, very low carb diets increase the risk for kidney stones and potential for bone loss as well, contributing to osteoporosis. And also, according to the American Heart Association, restricting carbs can increase the risk of heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, stroke, and certain kinds of cancer as well. And also, most of these plans generally exceed the American Heart Association's dietary guidelines of protein, which recommend only 15 to 20% protein and only 10% saturated fat. Most of the time they're going above that, which is not recommended for a healthy, well-balanced diet. And you're also depriving yourself of that fiber that you need, which is not good. Another type so we talked about low carbohydrates. There's also low fat diets. So less than 20% of energy comes from fat. Usually only 5 to 10% of your energy comes from fat. There's limited, or they're eliminating animal protein sources. Dieters on these diets will primarily eat grains, fruit, and vegetables, which most people cannot do for a very long time. You need the balance. Eventually, the individual wants some foods higher in fat or protein. So, a recent find, high protein can actually cause scarring in the kidneys. It's causing the kidneys to work much harder and, filter out the blood, so just something to be aware of. Diets high in saturated fat increase the risk of prostate, breast, and colon cancer, and protein diets are, low in productive dietary fiber, which can also increase the risks of certain types of cancer as well. So some of the examples of the low carb diets, which we'll talk a little bit more about, Atkins, Sugar Busters, Carbohydrate Addicts Diet, the 5-Day Miracle Diet, Protein Power, Enter the Zone, Endocrine Control Diet, Healthy for Life, 4-Day Wonder Diet, Calories Don't Count, Miracle Diet for Fast Weight Loss. So those are just some of them, but as you can see, there are a lot of low or restricted carbohydrate approaches. Another type of diet are the low fat ones. So examples of that: the Rice Diet Report, the Eat More Weigh Less Diet, the 35 Plus Diet, 20-30 Fat and Fiber, Fat to Muscle Diet, 2-Day Diet, Complete Hip and Thigh Diet, Pasta Diet, G-Index Diet, Lean Bodies, and so on. So there's tons of different, low fat diet plans. Also, there's something called Novelty Diets. So novelty diets will often emphasize one type of food or food group and exclude almost others. So like the banana diet was popular a few years ago. But this was actually originally designed in the 1940s. And another diet, the egg diet or the rice and egg diet. So the rationale behind these diets is that you can only eat eggs, fruit, or rice. So just so long before coming forward, in theory, you're reducing your energy intake. However, it's much more likely that you're going to abandon this diet because it's just not sustainable, and you're not going to lose weight because it's just not, your body needs more than that. So some, bizarre novelty diets, claim that food combinations purifies the body, releases toxins, and things like that. So examples of these diets: Beverly Hills diet, banana diet, I said earlier, the rice and egg diet. Those are just some examples. There's so many types, but we are going to talk a little bit more about, certain types of diets and, what they are and problems that they can cause in the long run. So again, with novelty diets, they're going to promote certain nutrients, foods, or combinations of foods as having a unique, magical, or previously undiscovered quality. So it can actually lead to malnutrition, and it's not going to change your everyday eating habits, which could lead to, going back to your old patterns, which is, kind of the point of, changing and making a more balanced, healthy diet. And it's going to give you unrealistic food choices, which can lead to, binging. So another type of, diet is the moderate calorie restriction. So it's usually like 1,000 to 1,800 calories per day with a moderate fat intake. So it's got a reasonable balance of macronutrients. It's encouraging exercise, and it may use a behavioral approach. It's acceptable if your vitamin and mineral supplement is used, and if its permission is granted by a physician. There's also very low calorie diets. It's less than 800 calories a day, and they're using protein sparing modified fast, which you really need to be under a doctor's watch if you're going to do something like that. But it's used for fast weight loss under a doctor's supervision, to get ready for surgery possibly. But there are some problems with low calorie diets. So organ tissue losses, especially from the heart, low blood potassium could lead to heart failure. Some of them are expensive to follow, and potential for kidney stones with rapid weight loss, potential for gout as well. So what we're going to talk about now is kind of what is a normal metabolism. So there's 3 sources of energy: carbohydrates, fat, and protein. So carbohydrates are the first and most efficient source of energy to the body. So the brain, kidney cells, all use those. Fat is the second energy source. It's stored easier than carbohydrates. And then protein is a reserve energy source. So insulin is another word that you hear a lot. So insulin, it is the key which allows glucose to be used for energy. It's used to help store energy and fat. So does insulin make us fat? No. In order to store fat, you must eat more than you need. So you want to have that balance. So what we're going to talk about now is the Atkins Diet. So a lot of people may do this, but it's just, kind of a low carb diet, but sometimes it can be dangerous and due to water loss, and most of the weight is regained. So usually phase 1, so there's 3 phases. So phase 1 promotes less than 20 grams of carbohydrates per day. For 2 weeks you do that, which is promoting ketosis, therefore it's going to lead to weight loss. It's focusing on mostly protein and fat, and then low carb bars and food products as well. So it's got restriction on fruits, whole grains, beans, and low fat dairy. So is ketosis the answer? So what is it? So ketosis is a form of energy used when carb intake is very low. Body burns fat, which produces byproducts called ketones that can be used for energy for the brain. So it sounds great, right? So ketones are acidic, which can lead to acid and a base imbalance. So this can lead to kidney stones, bad breath, gout, things like that. So kind of, with Atkins, it's very short term. It can lead to dehydration, decreased mental clarity, kidney damage potential, osteoporosis as well. But some pros, it's a diet, you're more aware of your choices that you're eating. You'll cut out some of those bad things that maybe aren't beneficial for your diet, like french fries, chips, cookies, pies, cakes, soda, things like that. But the next diet we're going to talk about is the South Beach diet. So with the South Beach diet, there's 3 phases. So the first phase is it's going to ban all carbohydrates and allows normal-sized portions of meat, veggies, eggs, and nuts. The second phase is reintroducing good carbs. And then the third phase is you're eating pretty much anything in moderation. So this diet helps a person become more aware of what they're eating. Second and third phases promote high fiber, lean protein, and dairy, fruits and veggies, and good fats. And then all things in moderation. So it's kind of about changing, the things that you are eating and what you are putting inside, so you're more aware of it. So the next diet that we're going to talk about is the Zone. So the Zone is just a complex eating plan that divides each meal into exact percents of protein, fat, and carbs. So 40% protein, 30% fat, and 30% carbs. So it does have some pros. So it more closely follows the ADA dietary advice, which is 50 to 55% carbs and 15 to 20% protein, and then 30% fat. Less than 10% of that needs to be saturated though. But I think the most important thing with this is you just want to make sure that you are having a balanced diet. So paying attention to your portion sizes, 3 to 4 ounces of meat, which is like a deck of cards, serving a fruit the size of a tennis ball, a half a cup of veggies is like a light bulb, a cup of pasta, like a baseball. So making sure that your exercise is balancing out your calories consumed. But then some of the other diets that we didn't talk about that I'm just going to mention. So Mediterranean diet, vegetarian diet, vegan diet, the ketogenic diet, Weight Watchers, raw food. Those are just some of the other diets that you may see, but I just think being aware of, your nutritional needs and making sure that your body's getting what it needs to properly function, and not, taking everything with a grain of salt. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I will see you later.